Today is Wednesday, April 26th. Now that President Biden is officially in the 2024 race, we'll tell you what he's promising and how his top Republican rival is responding. Also, the new law in Washington state that is already being challenged in court, and the protests and controversy in Montana involving the first transgender lawmaker in state history. Plus, the latest ways you can now protect your data on ChatGPT, the next business venture for Ben from Ben & Jerry's, and a new kind of Barbie to represent more kinds of kids. Those stories and more news in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. What's been called the worst-kept secret in Washington is out. President Biden has officially announced he's running for re-election in 2024. Once again, Vice President Kamala Harris will be his running mate, and he tapped senior White House advisor Julie Chavez Rodriguez to be his new campaign manager. She's the granddaughter of the famous activist Cesar Chavez and already has experience working under both Presidents Biden and Obama and Vice President Harris. Biden's new campaign released a video to launch his re-election bid. In it, the president cites freedoms he says are threatened, like abortion access, same-sex marriage, and voting rights. And he promised to protect Americans from so-called MAGA extremists. Of course, MAGA is short for Make America Great Again, former President Trump's slogan. And since, once again, Trump is the current frontrunner for the Republican nomination, it makes sense that the Biden team is calling him out. And it also makes sense that former President Trump is hitting back. Yesterday, Trump attacked Biden over high inflation, his handling of immigration on the southern border, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, while again accusing Democrats of cheating and rigging the last election, something several courts and President Trump's own Justice Department have ruled out. But Trump still has to survive what's expected to be a pretty competitive Republican primary. Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis, former Vice President Mike Pence, and Senator Tim Scott are all apparently considering whether to run now. Others, like former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, are already officially in the race. On the Democratic side, Biden is not expected to face too much competition. Other top Democrats who have run before, like Senator Bernie Sanders and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, have already said they do not plan to run this time and have endorsed Biden. So far, Biden does not have any campaign rallies planned. His advisors say for now, he's sticking to his regular schedule as commander-in-chief. Washington just became the 10th state to ban what it considers assault weapons. Governor Jay Inslee signed a measure into law that makes it illegal to sell, manufacture, or distribute more than 50 different types of semi-automatic firearms. He says the new law might not solve all problems, but that it's a step against gun violence that will save lives. And it took effect immediately. To be clear, Washington's ban does not make it illegal for people to keep the weapons they already have. They just won't be able to buy any new ones. Still, the new law has a lot of critics who say it punishes law-abiding gun owners while not addressing the underlying causes of gun violence, and they point to people experiencing mental health crises. Soon after the governor signed it, the Firearms Policy Coalition and Second Amendment Foundation filed a lawsuit challenging it as unconstitutional. That's not the only new gun law Washington's governor signed, though. Another imposes a 10-day waiting period for people buying any kind of gun, and buyers will have to show they've taken safety training. A third clears the way for lawsuits against gun makers or sellers in certain cases. Those two could end up facing legal challenges as well. Montana's state capitol saw intense protests this week, so intense that the Republican leaders decided to cancel yesterday's session altogether. The protests have been happening in support of State Rep Zoe Zephyr. She is the first transgender lawmaker in Montana's history, and she drew criticism during a recent debate on a bill to ban transition-related medical care for minors. Zephyr told anyone who decided to vote yes that they'll have blood on their hands. Well, because of that, her colleagues decided she could not speak on the House floor again until she apologized. The bill ultimately passed, but the backlash did not end there. Many of her supporters crowded the House gallery this week, shouting, "Let her speak." Police officers eventually moved in to clear everyone out and arrested a handful of people. Today, Montana's legislature will be back in session, and there will apparently be a vote to decide whether Representative Zephyr should face more discipline. And it could even include expulsion. To be continued. The world is saying goodbye to a groundbreaking singer, actor, and lifelong civil rights activist. Harry Belafonte died of congestive heart failure at 96 years old. He was one of the most popular, influential entertainers of his time. He was an EGOT, meaning he won all 4 major awards in the entertainment industry: an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. And Belafonte used his stardom to be a voice for change. He worked alongside the Reverend Martin Luther King. He gave money to bail Dr. King and other civil rights activists out of jail. He helped organize the March on Washington in 1963. Then in the 1970s and 80s, he helped organize a cultural boycott of South Africa, as well as the Live Aid concert and all-star recording We Are the World to help fight famine in Africa. And he remained politically active all the way into his 90s. When the news broke of his death, tributes started pouring in on social media. Oprah Winfrey called Belafonte a hero and role model. Former President Obama called him a barrier-breaking legend. And others remembered him fondly, including John Legend, Viola Davis, Spike Lee, and many more. Well, it seems Americans are growing much more pessimistic about what's in store for the U.S. economy. Consumer confidence dropped to a 9-month low this month. Researchers behind the Conference Board survey say that's partly because people are expecting the jobs market to soften soon. Already, companies are posting fewer job openings and layoffs are starting to pile up, especially in the tech industry. On top of that, inflation is still running well above the Federal Reserve's target, and there's some anxiety over recent bank failures that could make it harder for people to get loans. So fewer Americans surveyed said they plan to buy big-ticket items like cars, major appliances, and homes. Fewer also reported plans to take a vacation in the next 6 months. While this kind of drop is not necessarily good news for everyone, it's actually the kind of thing the Federal Reserve has been hoping for, since the Fed believes this is what it's going to take to get inflation under control. But it's still a tough balancing act, since if consumer confidence drops too much, the economy could dip into a recession. The electric vehicle industry is seeing more big investments in the United States. This week, 2 major automakers announced separate plans to build EV battery plants in the U.S. For starters, General Motors says it's going to pair up with Samsung, and together they'll invest $3 billion on an American factory. And that's on top of the 3 other battery factories GM is already building. Separately, Hyundai announced it's going to be working with another South Korean battery maker, SK On. They're investing $5 billion in a battery factory in Georgia. Even more companies have already announced their own investments, too, like Ford, which is working on 3 massive EV and battery factories, Stellantis, that's building a new factory in Indiana, and BMW, which has plans for a new plant in South Carolina, just to name a few. People who use ChatGPT now have some new options when it comes to privacy. The company behind the popular chatbot, OpenAI, says users can now turn off their chat histories in their account settings. If you do that, your conversations will no longer get saved, and OpenAI's models won't use your data for their own training purposes. But no matter what, the company will keep storing data for 30 days before deleting, saying that's necessary to spot abusive behavior that might pop up. On top of the new privacy feature, OpenAI announced a new ChatGPT business subscription that's coming soon, and that one won't use any data for training by default. TechCrunch says ChatGPT has many millions of active users already, making it the fastest-growing consumer application in history. One famous businessman helped start a billion-dollar ice cream brand, and now he's hoping to do the same for cannabis. Ben Cohen, better known as Ben from Ben & Jerry's, started a new nonprofit cannabis brand called B3. It's making different forms of marijuana from all organic sources, and 100% of the profits will go to, quote, right the wrongs of the war on drugs. The company says 80% will go to grants for Black cannabis entrepreneurs, while the rest will be equally divided between the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance and the National Last Prisoner Project, which is working to free people in prison for cannabis offenses. All of B3's products are expected to be available in Vermont cannabis shops soon before expanding. For the first time, children with Down syndrome will see themselves represented in Barbie dolls. Toy giant Mattel announced the new Barbie as part of the Fashionistas line that has also included a doll with a wheelchair, one with a prosthetic leg, and another with hearing aids. This time, Barbie says it worked with the National Down Syndrome Society on the doll's shape, features, clothing, and packaging to make sure people with Down syndrome were represented accurately. And the doll's physical features were reviewed by a medical professional. The 2023 Fashionistas dolls, including the Barbie with Down syndrome, will be widely available in stores this summer and fall. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Work Wednesday, when we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. So remote work has really taken a toll on office buildings, and at this point, it doesn't look like that trend is going away anytime soon. New data from real estate information company CoStar shows the amount of office space available for lease in the U.S. is at a record high. That includes subleases available, too. And that's especially the case in San Francisco, where a lot of tech companies are based. The real estate firm CBRE says the vacancy rate in downtown office buildings in San Francisco is close to 30%. A couple of other hard-hit places include Washington, D.C. and New York City. So the mayors of both of those cities are trying something new, turning office and manufacturing spaces into new housing. They say since there's also a lack of affordable housing available, the idea could solve two problems at once. But converting buildings apparently is not that easy. Builders need to install hundreds of bathrooms and kitchens along with plumbing, since office buildings usually have 2 large bathrooms per floor. And in some cities, rezoning plans have to be approved first. So critics say with all those hurdles, the projects might not be worth it. But supporters are into the idea, not only to fill up the spaces, but to bring more people and their business back to downtown business districts. Well, thank you so much for joining us as part of your daily routine and for supporting us by sharing the show. You can also support us by becoming a Newsworthy Insider. For just $5 a month, you'll get access to ad-free episodes every day and some bonus content. Go to thenewsworthy.com/insider to start your 7-day free trial now. That's thenewsworthy.com/insider. All right, we'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.